Well, hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. And I think it's the first day of June. We're getting into springtime, but it feels like summertime here in New York City, where I am. And today we have joining us Finian from Vickers Venture Partners, and he's joining us from France. Yeah, two very different time zones here. And I know that we have people who are here from many time zones on the Zoom. So I'm going to introduce Finian now, and please keep signing on. Really appreciate it. So as we go forward, you know what the drill is: to ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll get to those. But we're going to start with an introduction of Finian first. So Dr. Finian. Hello, Finian. How are you?
Hi everyone.
Good.
Thanks, Rebecca, for this.
Yeah, no problem. I'm so happy to run into you the other day. And let me just bounce to that photo, because a lot of people already saw this photo online. I ran into Finian after many years because, you know, COVID, no travel and so forth. And so we got this photo together at the China Institute, where he was recently honored. And he got a lot of applause, not only for all of his career credentials, but also for his jacket. So I know a number of you commented on this jacket on social media. So that's great. And then I have known Finian for a very long time, and I think I met him maybe 20 years ago or more. And we both looked a little bit different then, but there's Finian with long hair. So, okay, as you know, we like to have a little bit of fun with our shows. So thank you for indulging me. All right, so now let me introduce Finian. He is very well known in the Asian venture capital and finance business. One of the reasons he's so well known is he led the first investment in Baidu, and he was the largest backer until Baidu's IPO. So that is quite something. If anyone, I know we have some investors in Baidu on this Zoom. So here's your fellow who actually made it happen, invested in Baidu from the very beginning. So besides that, he was a partner and managing director, head of Asia for DFJ ePlanet, based in Singapore. He was also managing director at Credit Suisse, First Boston, Singapore, Malaysia. He has really been involved with the national government, with trade and technology in Singapore. He was Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Trade and Industry of Singapore, and Executive Deputy Chairman of National Science and Technology Board of Singapore. Also, you also set up the TIF fund and ran that for a while, right, Finian?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Long time ago.
Long time ago. And then you ran Goldman Sachs Regional Trading Desk. So I guess
I did.
You're kind of a currency investment guru.
Well, I started life as a operations executive at Shell.
Okay.
Became a commodity trader at Goldman. Then I ran JRN in Singapore, which is the trading arm of Goldman Sachs. And then suddenly was asked to serve in the administration as Deputy Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Industry of the Singapore government.
Okay, very good. And I see quite a stellar academic background here. PhD, University of Cambridge, Bachelor of Science, University of Glasgow, Master's, University of Cambridge. And then you are schooled in engineering.
Yes. In fact, I taught engineering for a while at Cambridge.
Okay.
And then decided that academia wasn't for me.
Wasn't for you. You would rather be on the front lines of the action.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, what kind of engineering, by the way?
Actually, in Cambridge, we do sort of it's a tripod system. So you study all engineering, and then in the final year, you focus on a couple of subjects. So I did the stability of cyclic systems for my master's and my PhD.
Okay. All right, well, maybe we'll get some questions about that. Sounds very intriguing. All right, now a little bit about Vickers Venture Partners. It was founded in 2005 with 4 co-founding partners. And some of you have been on our show for quite some time from the very beginning. You'll remember that we had Jeffrey Chi from their Shanghai office on. And that was really interesting. And so now we're circling back with Finian. Anyhow, so we've covered Singapore and Shanghai, Silicon Valley, New York, and London is where their 5 offices are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they've recently secured $260 million toward their 6th fund. They're investing in biotech, clean tech, energy, and more. I think they have a geothermal deal, which is very interesting, and also a lot of very breakthrough kind of biotech deals. So I like these 2 quotes about their investing style. The single most important factor is our investment screening is people, and funding a better world. So Finian, since you brought up this idea of the single most important factor is people, I have to ask you about investing in Robin Lee's startup, Baidu. What compelled you to do that? What was it about either the business model or the person? What was it that made you say, okay, this is the one?
Well, you have to remember that this was a long, long time ago, right? 1999, 2000 time frame. At that time, the internet was just happening, and it was very confusing because there were all sorts of companies valued on eyeballs with no path to profitability.
Yeah.
So we were very unsure as to what type of businesses would succeed. So we looked back, and the previous era was the PC world. And the biggest winner in the PC world was Microsoft, the operating system of the PC. So in the internet world, I asked myself, what's the operating system of the internet? And after some thought, I decided that it was search. And I guess that's what you do today as well, right? That's the first thing you do. So we decided to, at that time, there was a company called Inktomi in the US. It was supplying technology to Yahoo and other big websites. In China, there was another company called OpenFind that was supplying technology to Sina and Sohu and NetEase. But Baidu was the challenger, and it had a very different algorithm, which was based on how popular a search was. In the past, it was a directory system, so you would just go through every single directory. Imagine you have a cupboard full of doors, and there is one door that has a prize. It would open every single door and eventually stumble on the prize. But Baidu was different. You would open the door most open by everyone. So that was a very different algorithm. There was only another company that did the same algorithm or architecture, and that company was called Google. So we were very excited about this new architecture, and so this was our largest investment for the Asian part of the fund.
Okay. And what was it? Did you meet Robin at all during
Oh
that
yeah,
time?
many times.
Many times. And
Many
his
times.
co-founder as well, Eric?
Yeah, Eric Shi. We, in fact, I'll tell you a funny story. One Sunday, I was there with Jishun, my partner and Drake Fisher, who now is at GGV. So I was there with Jishun, and we were in a restaurant, and it was a Sunday. And Robin said, his people work very hard, and they are often there on weekends too. Mm-hmm. So it was about 6:30. I said, let's go to the office. And then he said, you mean like now? I said, yeah, sure. So we went there, and he was a little nervous because there may not be people there.
Yeah.
So we went there, he opened the door and the lights were on and there were a few people working and he was very relieved. On the way back in the cab, we shook hands and we closed the deal.
Oh, okay.
7.5 million for a quarter of the company.
I'm sorry, what were the figures again?
7.5 million for a quarter of the company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then that went on to become like how many more times?
Oh yeah. You know, the company at that time was valued at 20 million pre-money. They raised 10 million. We took the lion's share of the round. Existing investors took a little, and then we gave 1 million to a company called IDG, and the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah. Gee, I remember.
So we owned at the point of IPO. We had re-upped along the way. So we started with 25, but at the IPO, we had 28.1% of the company. We were the largest single shareholder.
Wow. Wow. So they went IPO, they went public in 2005, I believe.
Correct.
And
It actually broke the record of the best IPO in the history of NASDAQ at that time. I don't know if they still hold the record today.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a big question. I'm thinking others. Well, Alibaba.
Well, as an IPO, Baidu did better because we listed cheap and then it went up 5x on the first day.
I see.
Yeah. So as an IPO, it was the best performing in terms of the multiples.
Okay. And then how long did you hold on to the shares after that? I know there's a lockup period.
Yeah, after the lockup, we actually distributed shares to everyone.
Okay.
So we didn't sell. We distributed shares. We took all our carry in shares, encouraged everyone to hold. Many sold. Many of our partners kept the shares until today, actually.
Okay.
So it's been a ride. I sold along the way, started Vickers. You know, I have to bet on myself. So
okay, sure. So you have to bet on yourself. All right. So then does that mean that you ventured into something else then?
yeah, I mean, I started Vickers and then needed capital to start the company because, you know, when you start raising a fund, you normally start with a small fund.
Yeah.
And you have to put a lot of money into the fund as a sponsor. You have to make sure that the GP has a stake in the game. And so that's what I did and sold some Baidu shares, started Vickers Venture, hired a team of people, and we're now been together for like 18 years. Actually, I started in 2003, November. My partners came along in 2005. Okay. So it's 19 years now.
Okay. So are you still in touch with Tim Draper at all?
Yeah.
Or any of those guys from ePlanet?
Yeah, actually, there were 5 co-founders of ePlanet: Tim, John, and Steve from the Draper Fisher Jefferson, and 2 others from ePlanet, Asa Jamal and Roderick Thompson. Yeah. So Roderick Thompson unfortunately just passed away a few months back at the age of 83. But he was a mentor of mine, and we were very close and did many things together. I see.
Yeah, I remember Assad. I've interviewed Assad many times. I interviewed Robin and his co-founder.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We actually just listed a company that we invested and shared with Draper Fisher Jefferson Dragon in China.
Yeah.
The company is called Jingjin Diandong. It's an electric motor company for electric vehicles. We just listed it in the Shanghai Stock Exchange.
Okay. All right.
In the board, the IPO about 80 times our.
Okay. Wow. That's a huge run up. So Finian, what kinds of, what's the next big hit after Baidu? That was such a tremendous achievement. What's the next big hit after? Can anything top that? Like, what are you working on now that's got you super excited about the potential?
We
Your internet is breaking up a little bit.
7 unicorns. 2 months ago, we pivoted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh dear. How is it? Is it bad?
I hear you
Can
talking.
you hear?
Your picture dropped off, and okay, your
Okay.
picture's back. It's okay right now.
Okay. Let me switch my Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And see if
Yes, switch your Wi-Fi.
no. Okay, so let's carry on and let me know if it doesn't work.
Okay.
So we pivoted about 2 months ago and started focusing on deep technology.
Okay.
In the past, we were generalist VC, just like everybody else, investing mainly in the internet and Web 3.0 and group sharing and apartment sharing, the sharing economy.
Right.
But we realized that because we're all techies. I mean, like we have a bunch of PhDs in our team. Everybody has advanced degrees, mainly in deep tech, either biotech or clean tech or nanotech. So we realized that we did better in the deep tech space than we did in the general space. So we decided to double down on what we were good at and cut out what we were not good at, and eventually morphed into a deep tech global VC firm. We did that 2 months ago. So to give you some examples of what we're very excited about today, so let me give you 3 companies.
Okay.
The first company is a company called RWDC. It's based in Athens, Georgia, and Singapore. And it makes bioplastic that is biodegradable, but costs about the same as plastic. It's like plastic. Straws, you name it, single use. The main difference, though, is that it's entirely bioluminescent, which is better than biodegradable. If you leave it bobbing in the sea, it disappears into food for organisms. So that's something very exciting because we're inundated with plastics, especially during COVID. PPE, all plastics, right? Masks, all plastic. So takeaway food, all made of plastic. So it was, the packaging for takeaway food. So during COVID, the world was swamped with plastic much more than any other time in history. So it'd be nice to have a solution to this. The customers we're talking to are the who's who in the F&B industry, McDonald's and Starbucks and PepsiCo and people like that, Ferrero Rocher and Tetra Pak and people like that. So it's very, the brands, the big brands, are very conscious of the fact that customers are shunning away from plastic, and rightly so. The second company that I want to mention is a company called EVOR, EAVOR. This is a company based in Calgary, Canada, and they are a geothermal company, except that they are what we call an advanced geothermal system. In the past, in order to extract geothermal heat, you have to find hot springs. And that's difficult to find. And because of that, less than 1% of the world is powered geothermally. This company has found a way to extract heat by conduction. So it doesn't need hot water to extract the heat. We just run pipes underground, but very deep. We fill the pipes with water. It's a closed loop. Hot water rises in the pipe. You extract the heat. Cold water sinks. You get a perpetual machine, quote unquote, and without having parasitic pumps. So it's very exciting. BP, Chevron, Temasek are co-investors in the company. So we already drilled a pilot plant in Calgary, Canada. It worked like a dream. We're now going to dig the deepest geothermal well in history in New Mexico.
What's the deepest geothermal drill? I mean, well.
What's the deepest? We right now it's a few kilometers, but ours will be 7 kilometers deep. So that's something.
Okay.
The third company I just want to mention is a company called Emergex. This is a company based in Oxford, in England, and they are a vaccine company. And we invested in it's a vaccine for RNA viruses, of which COVID is one. We invested in this company pre-COVID, thinking that one day a pandemic might strike us.
Yeah.
And it did. So this is a T-cell focused vaccine company. I think the world knows vaccines to be antibody based, but the immune system has two parts to it: antibodies and T cells. Antibodies kill the viruses, and if a virus infects a cell, a good cell, then the T cell destroys the cell. So you need the two to work in tandem. All the vaccines in the past that were eradicating or almost eradicating, like polio, yellow fever, smallpox, had both antibodies and T cells. But the COVID vaccine was modeled after the flu vaccine, which is antibody based. And the flu vaccine never eradicated the flu. So you really need antibodies and T cells to work together. So why were our vaccines antibody based? Because the old vaccines that eradicated the diseases were done traditionally, which took decades. We needed a quick path to this vaccines, and they had to use synthetic methods. And at that time, only antibodies had a synthetic way of producing it. So, but there are 7 of us in the T cell space that are developing T cell vaccines. And we're probably the leader in that race. So we were very excited. We're in clinical trials now in Switzerland for not just COVID, but COVID and dengue and a few more diseases in the pipeline. So that's something that we're very excited about. I could name another 10 other companies, but basically, I hope this gives you an idea of the type of deep technology companies that we're focused on. It's not an Uber-like company or a game company or e-commerce. That's not what we do. We're very focused on world-changing breakthroughs, and hence our motto, funding a better world.
Right. Okay, very good. So I'm hearing today a lot about venture capital slowdowns and entrepreneurs being warned that they need to save up now because tough times are coming. What about with your portfolio? Does that impact them as well, or are they outside of it because they're in deep tech?
I think everybody is affected in one way or another. Firstly, if you have any companies that are about to go public, valuations have come down. Mm-hmm. Companies that are in the earlier stages, valuations have moved down somewhat, but less than those that are later stage. And it's a generally harder environment to raise capital. So if your companies are needing capital urgently, then you hope to have dry powder within your own fund to continue funding the company. And hopefully you invested together with some friends and they have some dry powder too, just to tide them over during the lean patch. But if you invest in a breakthrough technology, like say a cure for cancer, you know, the world doesn't change, right? I mean, there are still people dying of cancer during COVID. There's still people dying of cancer during recessions.
Yeah.
So the demand for such breakthroughs are always there. The demand for bioplastics, alternatives to plastics, is there. The demand for vaccines are there. You know, the demand for energy is there. In fact, more so. So some of our companies have had some valuation impact in the negative, but some actually in the positive. For example, Ever, because with the Ukraine sort of conflict, energy prices have just skyrocketed. But not just the price, energy security in general, it has been heightened. And people are now looking to hopefully be self-sustaining or more self-sustaining than they were before. So if you, by the way, because we can just extract heat by conduction, we can drill anywhere, anytime.
Okay. So that's
We can even make a country like Singapore self-sufficient in energy, even though it has no oil or natural gas underground, but it has heat.
Well, that would certainly change the dynamic. So comment here, awesome. So yeah, thank you, Brian, for your comment. There's a question here that I was going to ask you when you were talking about your biotech deals. And if you have any in the cancer oncology space.
Yes, we have a company called BioSplice that has very exciting clinical trials in cancer, solid tumors. So that's very exciting.
Okay. Hal Kelman says that there's some conference in Chicago this week. A lot of companies exhibiting cancer oncology. Are you have any companies there? It's a very specific question, but do you have any companies at that Chicago conference?
I'm not sure. I would need to check because I'm not, I'm not directly, on the board of BioSplice, so I don't have the latest. I can tell you more about the companies I sit on, which is about 40% of the portfolio.
Oh, this one right now, the cancer one that you're talking about?
The cancer one, the guy that's most involved is Dr. Lim Sin Hong from the Palo Alto office. He's a Stanford PhD in microbiology.
Okay. What was the one that you had in San Diego? I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, that's BioSplice.
That's the one.
Yeah, they have a new name. They used to be called Summerman.
Okay, and what's the new name now?
BioSplice. It reflects more the technology behind it because it's alternative splicing that it's based on.
I see.
So it wanted the word splice in the name.
Yeah, it's a good word.
I'll give you a few more examples of companies.
Yeah.
We have a kidney dialysis company that has a dialysis machine the size of a handbag. So it's ultra portable.
Okay.
And we invested early on, and Baxter, one of the biggest dialysis companies, followed and took the lion's share of the round. So yeah, we often co-invest with strategic investors.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
We have a company called Lumitron. It has its technology is X-rays that is 1,000 times more accurate than traditional X-rays that you are familiar with. 1,000 times. for the same toxicity. So what they can produce will be like colored movies rather than shades of gray.
Okay. Yeah, shades of gray. Okay. Well, so then how do you find all these companies? How do you find all these deals? These deep tech deals are not, it's not like you walk down the street and there they are. Or you see
Well,
them
that's why we have 5 offices scattered all around the key spots in the world. New York to cover Boston and the East Coast, Silicon Valley to cover all the West Coast. And then in between they share London to cover Europe, Shanghai to cover East Asia, and Singapore to cover Southeast Asia. So we're scattered all over the place. That's one. So we have boots on the ground. Secondly, we are specialists. So people who would like a specialist to look at their deal before they commit often call us, because we don't do, in the past when we were generalist VC, at the investment committee meeting, you would get a game company, an e-commerce company, a social network company, a bike sharing company, and logistics, and then a technology company.
Right.
So now it's very easy. E-commerce out, social network out, internet out, game company out, technology. Okay, that's interesting. So we asked 3 questions. Number 1, is it still a dream? If it is, it's too risky. Number 2, is it already established? Then it's too expensive. Our sweet spot is about 100 million valuation and companies that have passed the proof of concept, but need a little help to push along and convince the world that they have a new breakthrough. And what they lack is capital and networks and functioning as an institution. So we come in and we have those capabilities. We have money, we have institutional knowledge, we have friends, we have networks, and so we help to de-risk the company by just participating.
Okay.
So we fill the gap.
Yeah. No, that sounds very good. And then how do people find you, or do you go out and search them, or do they?
About 90% of our deals come daily. I mean, naturally, since we've been in the business for decades now, and we are specialists, so we're known. Thankfully, we are ranked pretty highly on the Preqin site. So I personally get 3 to 4 deals to 5 deals a day. So if you count 300 over days, because it comes also on Sundays and Saturdays, it doesn't stop. That's 1,500 just to me alone.
Yeah. Well, how do you filter through them? You just
Well, for us, it's quite easy. In the past, it was difficult when we were generalists, because there's something exciting in many, many companies. But now we only invest in deep tech. So more than 90% are not deep tech companies. They're all, basically internet related, business model related, software, business or B2C. A lot of sharing businesses, copies of Uber and copies of Facebook or Twitter or Instagram in a different part of the world, for example. So those are easy because they're not our focus.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely that's like the flavor of the month, right? And then everybody has to do their deal in bike sharing, for instance. And then a lot of VCs lost a lot of money in bike sharing.
Yes.
So these trendy things. What about?
Well, in breakthroughs, we don't invest in trends.
Okay.
We invest in things that have no market risk. Let me explain. A cure for cancer has no market risk. The number of cancer patients are known every year for almost every cancer. You just go to who.com. I saw a question on whether we invest in SaaS companies.
Yes.
We we do, but it's not a big part of our focus. We have a couple in our portfolio.
Right.
Yeah, but in general, we invest in real breakthroughs that is almost, it's very hard for another to follow. If you're a SaaS company, another company can do it, right?
Right.
It's a question of time and effort.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did see your performance figures of your prior funds on your site, and anyone on the Zoom today, you can look at their site, and it's all on there, pretty laid out, very clearly. So, but Finian, can you talk to us about the fund performance?
I think we're doing pretty well. We had a very good year last year. Our later funds, Funds 5 and Fund 6, Funds 5 and 6 were up, even though the Bloomberg Venture Capital Index is down quite severely. So I can't complain. But it's still work in progress. They're early funds, lots of potential, lots of excitement. It's the lowest failure rate so far for the same vintage, for the same time in the life of the fund. So far, so good. I think we're very satisfied that we pivoted to what we're most comfortable with.
So would you want to share maybe a company that didn't do so well that you had to write off? What happened there and what happened there? Just as an example.
Yeah. In our later fund, we have a company that's struggling a little bit. They're actually, and so they had to be written down, not written off yet, but written down. It's actually in the security space. It's found a way to code messages or data in a way that's much, much more efficient. And it's a very elegant solution. So let me give you an example. Let's say your code is 10 minus a number. So let's say your number, your password is 1234. So you want to encode it, and it's 10 minus 1 is 9, minus 2 is 8, minus 3 is 7, and minus 4 is 6. So the coded number is 9876, right? Now, but it's very easy code. It won't take the computer long to break that. So in order to make the codes more secure, you would make the formula more and more complicated. And that takes a lot of time for the computer to analyze and as a result, and to encode.
Right.
And because of that, it takes up a lot of CPU. Because you keep, and one day when the computer is as fast as a quantum computer, then it will break your security. Because they will just randomly hit your formula.
Oh.
So this company, instead of having longer and longer formulas, has developed a way to make the formula dynamic. So the formula is not static. And it was an amazingly elegant solution, not just thought by us, but Intel thought it was very good. Cisco thought it was very good. But we couldn't sell very well because people were afraid that we were a small company. And what happens if we don't exist? Who is going to take care of the security? Because we were not open source, you see. And as a result, they would go with Cisco and other big names because there is more security in the company. So the company risk is much lower. So we had a very tough time actually trying to sell our product. We don't really do those type of deals anymore. This was part of the Fund 5, because Fund 5 was so semi-deep tech and Fund 6 was wholly deep tech. So in deep tech, we don't take market risk anymore. And as you can see, this company failed or is failing because of market risk. We invest in companies that have a ready and known market, but still uncertain technology, which means it still has technological risk, and we're very comfortable with taking technological risk.
Okay, so
but we don't really like market risk.
Okay, so that leads into this question that Brian has. What sector of deep tech are you looking to further humanity that you haven't invested in yet?
Oh, the unbelievable amount of things that's still in the works. Carbon capture, for example, that's very exciting. Fusion technology, that's another very exciting thing. We're following up on a fusion company at the moment, cold fusion. So we're looking at anything that can help the world environmentally or socially, or the plastic problem. It's not going to be solved just by RWDC. They're mainly focused on single-use plastic, and they still need oil as a feedstock. But one day, a company like RWDC wouldn't need oil to feed the bacteria to produce bacterial fat to make PHA, to make mineral water bottles and cutlery. One day, we should be able to capture carbon from the air and make plastic products. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, yeah. You sound like, I think your engineering background is coming through here. And there was a question about how your engineering education from Cambridge impacts your work today.
Oh,
so
very much
you a
so.
real advantage, it seems.
I became a venture capitalist because venture capital is really a mix of tech and finance.
Yeah.
So I happened to have both, so it was a nice combination.
Right. Exactly. But would you say you're a risk taker or not?
We are constantly trying to reduce risks.
Yeah.
But we do things that the faint-hearted don't tread.
I'm sorry, what was that?
We do things that the faint-hearted don't tread.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, we look at, we have the guts to invest in very futuristic technology.
Sure.
After we're convinced that the proof of concept works.
I see.
So I'll give you an example. The CEO of a company ever came to see me in Canada. My sister lives in Canada, so since they were based in Calgary, I asked them to come down, and so he came to see me in Canada. Also visited me in San Diego, and he said, "I found a way to extract heat from the ground cheaply, without the need to wildcat for hot springs." So I said, "But what's new? The Earth has always been hot. What did you invent?" So he said, "Yeah, the Earth is always hot. In fact, the center of the Earth is as hot as the surface of the sun. It's not as hot as the center of the sun, but it's as hot as the surface of the sun."
I see.
So every time you drill down, for about each kilometer that you drill down, you get about 30 to 100 degrees centigrade. If you're near the ring of fire, like in volcanic regions, you get 100 degrees centigrade per kilometer depth. But if you go to somewhere cold, like say New York, it would be about 30 degrees centigrade for every kilometer centigrade. So you just divide by 2 times 2 to get Fahrenheit. So it's like 60 degrees Fahrenheit for every kilometer. Now a kilometer is about 0.6 of a mile. So I said, what's the invention? Because the Earth is always hot. And he said, well, the key is the discovery of lateral drilling. So by the oil and gas industry, because of fracking,
Yeah.
They were able to drill laterally, and we have found a way to range find two lateral drills and join them and make sure that it's waterproofly sealed. So, and that's an invention.
Wow.
Because, you know, there's nobody down there, right? It's just a drill bit.
Yeah.
And how can you join them together and make sure they are sealed? Because you need to form a closed loop, a
Yeah.
pipe, basically. And that's the invention.
I
And
see.
besides that, the other invention is they need to go to depths of about 4 miles to 7 kilometers.
Right.
And at 7 kilometers, it's 400 degrees centigrade. All your equipment will melt.
Oh.
So they have to invent a way to cool it such that, because your oven is only a few hundred degrees. This is twice as hot as your oven. So imagine if you take an instrument, put a thermometer in your oven, it will melt. So, and if you double the temperature, you will melt even faster, right?
Yeah.
So you have to imagine dealing with such hot temperatures and having instrumentation. So those were the inventions. So I said, wow, that sounds like a real invention. Can we see the instruments? Can we see these, environments under which these instruments can survive? So they said, sure. So we went to their lab in Calgary. Everything seems to work in the lab. And as scientists, if one component works, second component works, third component works, when you put them all together, they should work. So they said, we have a pilot plant in Calgary, but that's going to take a few more months. If you invest now, we're very cheap. So we invested then with the proof of concept in the lab. They did the pilot plant. And, when they switch the pump on, it's supposed to circulate the water. And after that, you can switch the pump on off. And it should continue circulating because hot water rises and cold water sinks. So physics, in theory, we understood. So when they switched the pump on, everything circulated. When they switched the pump off, it stopped for a while. And then we were all silent. And then suddenly it got going. And it's been going now for 2 years without any pump.
Wow. Where is this pilot then?
In Calgary.
It is in Calgary. The lab is
Yeah.
in Calgary and the pilot is in Calgary. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
So
Well, cool.
that was a nervous few minutes.
That's very cool. Finian, just switching gears a little bit about you. Did you grow up in Singapore?
I spent the first 20 years in Singapore. I did, like a 2-year college. Went to the army, did my national service,
Yeah.
and then went to the University of Glasgow. Completed my degree there. I did well, and so I got scholarships to go to many good schools, and I chose Cambridge. Did my master's and PhD there on 2 scholarships, on Christ College Scholarship and the Shell Cambridge Scholarship. I taught there for a while, then worked for Shell. In fact, next week, I think, I'm going to Glasgow because they kindly decided to give me an honorary doctorate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm going to receive and graduate this time because I've never attended a graduation ceremony in my life. Because when I was in Glasgow with my bachelor's, I had to go back to complete my national service, and had to do the same for my master's and my PhD because I disrupted, so I had to complete it. So in the end, I never attended any graduation. So this will be my first graduation.
I see. Well, that's about time, I think. There's a question about the fundraising environment. What do you think about the current fundraising environment? The current capital market as it pertains to fundraising.
Uh, I think it's tougher uh, in general, but good companies will still get funding. Um, if you are, a sexy company. So I think, um, for example, we have a company that is not a vaccine company. It's actually a drug delivery company
Okay.
based in London. It's called CISA. And it's very exciting because it has a silicon nanoball that can make mRNA stable at room temperature. mRNA is the hottest thing in the world today,
Sure.
and they are put into lipid balls, and these lipids require very, very cold temperatures to protect the RNA, up to minus 80 degrees centigrade. But if you put it in our silicon nanoball, it's stable up to 40 degrees centigrade plus. So that's very exciting, and there's a lot of interest to invest in that company.
Right. So with your companies, it really takes a special investor to co-invest with you or come in as a strategic. Or if you were going to go public with these companies, God, that takes a while to explain what they do the way you just explained them. That takes a special skill. I mean, so what's going to happen with these companies? What's their pathway?
Well, in 1 hour, I've explained many different companies and many different technologies that are actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
But I think you understood, right? Basically, the gist
yeah.
of
Well, yeah, we understood. But I'm just thinking about, the general public that invests,
yes,
they
yes.
want to have
Well,
a social media company, a metaverse company, a crypto company.
I think our companies are a lot easier to understand than cryptos, for
Okay.
example. Because we make real things, right? We make a silicon nanoball that makes mRNA stable.
Yeah.
We are T-cell vaccine, which is the other half of the solution to eradicate COVID-19 or dengue. We have a cure for cancer, hopefully. We have a plastic that degrades and costs like plastic and feels like plastic. So
Wow. I mean, they're great
and
companies.
then and our co-investors and we have an energy company that has a radiator underground, except that it's very deep underground.
Okay.
And by the way, the footprint of a geothermal system is about 30 times less land intensive than solar.
Oh.
It's just 2 holes on the ground and everything else is below surface.
Oh.
And then it's about 300 times less land intensive than wind.
I see.
So if you're in a beautiful island like Hawaii, you don't want it to be populated with wind farms, right? Or solar panels.
Right.
So for us, it's just 2 holes in the ground and everything else is underground and unseen. And it doesn't disturb basements because we are much, much deeper than any basement. We are much deeper than any mass rapid transit.
Right. So I take it that Shell would not invest in this company, or would they?
Well, BP is the lead in the company, was the lead in the
BP
last
is the
round.
lead in the company.
Yeah, BP was the lead, and so was Chevron.
I
They
see.
co-led the company,
Wow.
and then Temasek followed. So, so it's got excitement.
It does,
We also have some major global drillers investing in the company.
Okay. So Brian wants to know, when can we expect geothermal power to power the world?
Well, if our first line works in New Mexico as we expect, that's a major breakthrough. It's 7 kilometers deep, the deepest geothermal well in the world. And if it works as we expect, like our pilot in Calgary, which was only 2.5 kilometers deep,
I see.
this is a world-changing development.
Right.
And you will then gradually see the shift. It will be like the introduction of the first electric car by Tesla.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
Oh, well, that's great. I mean, you're your best pitch person about all of your portfolio companies. You could get on stage and talk about all of them. And so they must feel great to have somebody like you who can talk about them in general terms and really explain them. And you're also so excited about them. So, you know, your passion comes through about the companies you're investing in. So I think that's kudos to you. So we all had a great time spending time with you. And this week we don't have a poll, but you know, we had so much fun asking Finian about his portfolio companies that we didn't take time to do our normal poll. But I guess we could have asked, what is the next big tech breakthrough? And so any of you can put your answer there, what you think, in the chat, and that could kind of substitute as a okay, everyone's on geothermal now. You persuaded everybody. Geothermal is it. Okay, so before we go, I have to ask you one question that I came up when you were being honored at the Plaza Hotel just a few weeks ago when I was there and ran into you. And I said, oh, I think I know you. And you looked at me and said, oh, yeah, the Silicon Dragon. Nobody knows my name. They just know Silicon Dragon. So, so then, but then what came up during when they introduced you was they said that the character in Crazy Rich Asians was based on you. Now, is that right? Is there
I
any,
don't think so.
you
Well,
don't think so?
I guess he said that because there was a, you know, I recently got married. I mean, recent is like 2017 in Bali, and we had a 3-day affair, and it was quite a fun wedding, and people really liked that. And so some journalists wrote about the wedding after the show, and compared the two weddings. And so
I see.
and yeah, and the whole thing was done in Singapore. And the author of the book was Singaporean as well, and you know, half the cast were from Singapore. So I guess, you know, people seem to think that there is some connection, but I don't think so.
Yeah, well, you know, and then somebody else remarked on Facebook that you look like the actor. Yeah,
That's a compliment. Yeah,
yeah,
he's
you know, you
yeah,
do.
he's so popular.
So,
I love his accent.
You, what about his accent?
I love his accent.
Oh, you
Henry
love his
Goldman.
accent. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Any final comments at all? We have 1 minute left or 1/2 minute left. Any final comments to everybody?
Well, I guess all I can say is that, you know, technology is so important, and it drives the world. And it's not just the internet, it's not just cryptos. So I'm glad that, you know, we're in this spot where we're working on some of the deep technologies that can hopefully contribute, and we can achieve our motto of funding a better world.
Yeah, more power to you. So yeah, thank you, Finian. I just want to share a few more slides before we actually sign off for today. So, and also thank you again, Finian. It was great. So round of applause, everyone. Now,
Thank you very much.
yeah, so next we have another show in 2 weeks, 4 p.m. Pacific time, June 15th. From Mayfield. This is actually a biotech investor, so it'll be a good follow-on to Finian's remarks. So hope you'll all join for that show, and then join our Silicon Dragon Circle membership, which I know a lot of you are already members. So appreciate that, and we appreciate Invest Hong Kong support. We didn't talk too much about Hong Kong today, but we did talk a lot about Asia, so we didn't ignore or avoid at all. So okay, well, good. Let me sign off now and thank everyone for joining us, and thank you again for all the questions and all the great answers. Take care now.
Take care.
Stay safe, everyone. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.